There have been hundreds and thousands and millions of women who have experienced all forms of adversity, and it is up to you to share your story to encourage other women to break free from the cycles that they're in and to encourage them that it's okay to speak up.
Hey everyone, I'm Angeline Constantinou, and this is Her Unapologetic Voice. This podcast was created for women who lead but are done leading from apology. Here we have real, unfiltered conversations about boundaries, truth, and confidence. The kind of talks that remind you your voice is not something you find once, it's something you build. Every episode will give you something real to take with you, whether it's a boundary script, a reflection tool, or simply the courage to say what you really mean. So if you're ready to lead from your truth, not from approval, this is your space. Your unapologetic voice starts here. Welcome back to Her Unapologetic Voice, the podcast where we have courageous conversations that empower women to heal, rise, reclaim their voice, and step unapologetically into who they were created and destined to be. So I'm your host, Angeline Constantinou, and today's episode is going to be incredibly powerful because we are talking about healing, resilience, breaking cycles, and the transformative power of sharing your story. And joining me today is Michelle Jewsbury, founder and CEO of Unsilenced Voices. Michelle is an internationally recognized speaker, coach, advocate, and a true force for empowerment. Through her work, she helps survivors of pain and trauma transform their stories into impact, purpose, and even business success. Michelle has inspired audiences around the world by sharing her own journey of breaking the cycle of abuse and showing others that their past does not define their future. Today, we are diving into the healing journey, overcoming silence, finding your voice again, and how our stories can become the very thing that changes lives. So, without further ado, welcome, Michelle. Long time no see.
Yeah, long time no see. Very excited to talk about our book.
Yeah,
our
book,
right,
here we go.
Yeah, ready? Here we go. Very excited to talk about why it's so important to share your story, to be able to use your experiences to help other people, and excited to see your beautiful face again.
And I'm excited to see your beautiful face again too. And I miss Tampa. I love Tampa.
Yeah, it is getting kind of muggy. At the time of this recording, it's May, and it's early summer happening at the moment. But we are getting some mosquitoes, and when those love bugs go away in Florida, then it's all mosquito season. They're very close to me.
Everyone in Florida, so just so you all know. That's why we're recording. Okay, so I love your journey, and can you take us back to the beginning of your story for the listeners who will be tuning into our podcast?
Yeah,
so
of course. Thanks,
please, beginning.
I know I've been on your podcast before, but perhaps many of your listeners have not heard my story. So I'll start from the beginning just to do a recap. Mm-hmm. I was born in a small town in North Idaho called Sandpoint, Idaho, and I moved around my whole life. My daddy was military. Decided after graduating high school that I wanted to move to Hollywood, California to pursue an acting career. So I did. I packed my bags and I packed my car full of shoes and clothes. Women, you guys know what I mean there. And I moved my happy little butt at that time from Idaho to California. And I loved Cali at that time. I was starring in plays and films. Doing a lot of independent work. It was amazing. I thought that I was on my way to stardom. And during that time, I was introduced to a man, and he started pursuing me, courting me, and sending me flowers and gifts and texts in the morning and texts at night, and trying to see me and all of this. And lo and behold, 4 months into that relationship, he had pushed me so hard against a wall that my head went through it. And I did not realize that this was the beginning stages of domestic violence. I was unaware of really how it started. I didn't grow up with DV in my house whatsoever. My mom and dad maybe had some arguments. I don't even remember them yelling, but let alone my daddy would never raise his hand to my mom. It progressively got worse, and I ended up isolating and moving with him north California, and that's where things started to become really bad. And I stayed in that relationship for over 4 years, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of this.
Yeah.
And when I finally had the guts to escape, at that time I had tried to leave at least 7 different times. And when I escaped, I started to document my story. And when I documented my story and I was writing and typing on my computer, and at that time with a glass, or should I say a bottle of wine next to me, I then would read it back to myself. And it was this aha moment of, how is this me that I'm reading about? See, my mom raised me to be this very strong, independent woman, and I allowed myself to get trapped in this abusive relationship. And I knew I needed to do something more. So I began to turn that story into a one-woman play. My director, Jessica Lynn Johnson, was absolutely amazing. God sent her to me. And the first time I went into her studio, I had my arms crossed and put my legs up, and I'm like, what am I doing here? I was very skeptical. Well, I ended up writing and performing a 65-minute solo play about my experience in domestic violence called But I Love Him. Performed that in the Hollywood Fringe Festival in 2016, and then also the Whitefire Solo Fest. And then it was that moment after I had performed that people started coming up to me and telling me their stories. And at that time, I looked up at God and I said, wow, this is far bigger than me. What do you want me to do now? I sued my abuser. We settled out of court, and I used a large portion of that settlement money to start Unsilenced Voices in 2017.
Good for you.
So in 2017, I had no idea how to run an organization, had no idea what God wanted me to do. So I just began and put one foot in front of the other and allowed him to guide where he wanted me to go. We began in Ghana, and then expanded to Sierra Leone. That's where the bulk of our programming still is to this day. And we are working on raising $500,000 in 2026 so that we can build a school and housing, and so that I can go full time and we can hire a COO and CFO. We're working on that right now. We've also done some work in Rwanda. And then we have a curriculum called Graced for Prosperity that's available to any organization that wants to download it from unsilencedvoices.org. But that curriculum, we are hoping to partner with other organizations and help to have their patrons overcome financial challenges and other types of challenges related to domestic violence, sexual abuse, and trafficking. And then in 2019, I started my for-profit business as well. I wrote my first book called But I Love Him, which is the same title as the play. And I started speaking and coaching. And it was on that journey that I discovered it's not about me, but about helping other people share their stories. Hence, Breaking the Silence, Voices of Survivors, Volume 4, which Angeline is part of. And in September of 2026, we are actually going to be publishing Volume 5 of Breaking the Silence. I also work with people in private coaching and group coaching, and we have a new service coming out where it's a done-for-you course creation. So that's a little bit about me. I gave you a lot of information in the spiel, so I'm sure we can dive in there.
Oh yeah, we could definitely dive in there. And I love your story, and I love how you went from this place to where you are now, because there are women out there. This is how I feel. There's a hunger out there for women to share their stories. And why is that some survivors feel ashamed of their past and to share their stories? And how can they turn that pain into purpose, similar to what you did, similar to what I've done with Let's Break the Silence, because you were on my podcast 4 years ago in May. And then 3 months ago, we met in person. We met at a coffee shop, I remember, Michelle. And then after that, we met at the book launch. So you can turn your pain into purpose, and you can do anything that you set your mind to. So what advice would you give to a woman who is struggling, meaning she is struggling to share her story because she's afraid of maybe of what other people think or her family? Tell us about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I cannot believe it's been 4 years since I've done this podcast. Are you sure you got that?
Yes, it was me. I looked it up, actually.
My gosh, that is absolutely insane. So much has happened since then.
I know. So many things.
It's very interesting when I first talk to individuals, because most people don't know how to share their story in a way that doesn't make them feel triggered, shameful for what they've gone through, disparaged in some way. So initially, if you go through some type of experience, whether it is sexual abuse, domestic violence, trafficking, grief, disease, all of these things, right? If you go through something that drastically changes your life, that you feel maybe you shouldn't, and I hate shoulding on people, so I'm not trying to do this, right? But maybe you shouldn't have gone through, like me in my abusive relationship. I had to go through so much therapy that then I realized where my contribution in that horrible relationship was, and I allowed myself to stay. So there's a lot of these feelings that come in, especially being a woman. We run on feelings, not necessarily thinking, right? So feelings, we allow our feelings to dictate where we go. And there's a lot of shame surrounding some of these experiences that we've had. So it's not abnormal if people feel this way. However, there's 8 billion people on this planet at the time of this recording. Okay. That means there's 4 billion women, give or take, on this planet at the time of this recording. And there have been hundreds and thousands and millions of women who have experienced all forms of adversity. And it is up to you to share your story, to encourage other women to break free from the cycles that they're in, and to encourage them that it's okay to speak up. So even though we have that fear, that shame, that thought process, those emotions happening, it is literally our responsibility to speak up. And ladies, you would be surprised once you do. It is not pushback or harsh words that come after you, but it is words of affirmation and women who are supporting you and other companies and organizations and businesses and people who are supporting you speaking up. And this is how we're going to change the trajectory of what is happening worldwide through injustice, right? So speak up. And I encourage that. You fight down that fear and you do it anyway.
Right, exactly. I remember when I shared my story, it was March of 2018, and I was shaking. I didn't have StreamYard. I didn't have any fancy equipment. I'm in my 1-bedroom apartment, everyone. I turned on the phone and went live for 18 minutes, and it went viral.
And Angeline, you and I have a very similar story because that's what I did too, right? I went live on Facebook, and once you hit that live button, and this was before live was popular, right? This was before COVID, before the online stuff. Right. And I went live in 2017 and I was sweating. I was dating somebody at the time. Yeah, I'm so scared. But then it was words of affirmation, words of encouragement that started coming in. And that first time that I went live actually turned into I think it's a 33 episode podcast that I did called Tuesday Talks with Michelle Jewsbury. So you can find that. It's on Find Anchor from years ago. But it was me going live on Facebook and talking about aspects of domestic violence after telling my story.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my God. It's like, you and I have similar stories. Yes, absolutely. And I want to talk about building unsilenced voices because I know that's a huge passion of yours. You may have answered this question before, but what inspired you to create Unsilenced Voices?
God. It's 100% God. It's very interesting. Before starting Unsilenced Voices in 2017, I had a huge heart for Africa. I used to have dreams when I was young about me surrounded by African children. And I wasn't even a Christian. I didn't find God until 2010. So I would have these dreams, not really understanding what they were. When I left my abusive relationship, I then knew that I wanted to volunteer for some organization. And I was searching for somebody to work with. And I ended up finding a gentleman at church who had a nonprofit organization. And I went full force. I became vice president for it. I wasn't being paid, but I wanted to learn the ins and outs. And this organization worked out of Sierra Leone. This is also one of the reasons why we're still there. And I ended up going to Sierra Leone. And I started talking to a lot of these women and young girls about domestic violence in their country. I got back to the United States after that trip, and the CEO of that organization and myself had a falling out. So I left the organization and I learned what to do and what not to do by being a part of that organization. And then at that point is when God was like, you're starting your own. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't graduate college. I don't know how to do any of this. And he helped me along the way. He sent me the right people. He sent me where he wanted me to go, which was absolutely amazing. And it's scary to say yes to God because you don't see the next step. You know, you see maybe one or two steps in front of you, but you don't see where the fog is. Only God knows that. So there's this huge fear to say yes to God, because then it's like, well, then what's going to happen? How is this going to happen? And that is in God's hands. So we've been around at the time of this recording for 9 years. 2017 is when Unsilenced Voices started. And in 9 years, we have done a lot with a little bit of money. Like a lot. We serve over 1,400 people between 2 villages in Sierra Leone. And when I say serve, we do savings box programs, agricultural programs. We have partnered with the U.S. Peace Corps and do malnutrition programs. In 2025, we were able to feed over 250 babies. So keeping them alive, which is absolutely amazing. Our flagship program is called Matilda's program. It's a sponsor survivor program, but it's named after the first girl that we sponsored. She came in very, very feisty. We brought her off the streets. We paid for vocational training, helped her with a monthly stipend, medical counseling, all the materials that she needed. Lo and behold, we found out that she was HIV positive and then had full-blown AIDS. So she passed away. So we named the program after her. However, before she passed, she spread this mission all over Bo in Sierra Leone. So now we have had 74 plus girls who have either graduated already or who are going through vocational training currently, where they are now getting off the streets, breaking free from abuse, breaking free from trafficking, because some of these girls have been trafficked from other countries to Sierra Leone. And now they're being advocates on their own, starting their own businesses.
I love that.
Our goal for 2026 is to be able to build our own vocational training center. So that is what we want to do. And we want to be able to teach baking, hairdressing, tie-dye Angara, and sewing. We have a little itty bitty office space because we don't have the funds for the school quite yet. And we've turned this little office space into a small little classroom. And we have over 30 girls just in this teeny tiny little classroom because the girls just want so much. And a lot of the young women that we serve, they may have a disability. They may have never finished regular school. So vocational training is perfect for them. And in a third world or developing nation, you need the entrepreneurial experience in order to generate a living. So it's pretty awesome. And that's what's kind of kept me going. So
that's great. To witness these girls transform their lives through your work, that's amazing. To me, that's mind-blowing.
I try to make sure that I keep a distance, right? I've got a manager and 2 supervisors on the ground, but some of the girls, of course, get my WhatsApp number and they reach out to me, what's up, mama, right? And I'm like, make sure if you need this, go through Philip, right? You need to ask the manager, and then he comes to me. There's a process, and but it is absolutely adorable. One of the girls named her little boy after my dad, who had passed away in 2015. My manager ended up naming his daughter after me, which was so nice.
That's so nice.
I mean, it's just heartwarming. It's super heartwarming. These amazing, beautiful people will literally take the clothing off their back to give it to you. And they have nothing. It's something that is mission driven, and praise be to God.
Praise be to God is right. Praise be to God. And why is creating safe spaces for healing so important, especially and for women and men? I love the fact, I just want to say something. With breaking the silence, you brought men in, which is great. Because men have a voice too.
Men definitely have a voice.
It's all together because we all have different personalities. But I love the fact. What inspired you to start this? Going back to
well, that's a big question. I started a speaking and coaching career in 2019, and of course, 2020 happened. So everything went online. And at that point, 2019, my mother passed away and she left me a little bit of inheritance. So I invested about $40,000 in a speaking tour. And then COVID happened. So I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh my God, what do you do now?
Yeah, what do I do now?
Like when my dad passed away, like he left me money and I'm just reinvesting.
Yeah, so I reinvested in that education. And my first business coach, his name was Bill Walsh, or is Bill Walsh. I talk to him often, right?
Yeah.
And he was an amazing attribute to helping open doors for me so that I could spread the message, whatever that message is and was. Yep. I started speaking on virtual stages because that was 2020. And then we went back to on stage, and I was able to rub shoulders with some really amazing individuals. I'll name drop just one person. Lee Steinberg is a friend of mine. Lee Steinberg is Patrick Mahomes' agent from the Kansas City Chiefs. Wow. He's the real life Jerry Maguire. My business coach introduced me to Lee. Lee picked up my first book, started reading it in front of me, and I was having heart palpitations, and said, I want to help you. And he was able to come in and help us raise $100,000 at one of the luncheons that we had put together, along with Sean Callaghy from Unblinded. That combination was able to help us to raise some funds. I was focusing on Unsilenced Voices and speaking, and I had this like evergreen course that was $500 that I was selling. So I was losing money is what I was doing. And lo and behold, after COVID, I knew I didn't want to stay in California anymore. One of my very good friends, who was also the director of my play, Jessica Lynn Johnson, said, hey, I'm going to move to Florida. Do you want to go? And I said, heck yeah. So I packed my bags and went to Florida. So my last time in a regular day job was December of 2021. So I moved to Florida, and I'm like, all right, I have to make this work because I'm not going back to a regular job. So I move in with her and I start working. Now, I live just south of Orlando and I didn't want to stay there. So I was trying to decide, do I want West Coast or East Coast of Florida? So West Palm Beach area or Tampa. Yeah. Every time I went to Tampa, I saw the sunset. So I'm a sunset girl, not a sunrise girl. So
me too.
Like, right? Yeah. So we're close enough. You get that. So I decide I moved to Tampa and I moved to Davis Islands. And Davis Islands is absolutely amazing. And I found an apartment that was very, very affordable, especially on the islands. It's crazy. It was a first floor apartment. So I moved in June roughly of 2023. And then I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And all of a sudden I saw all of these collaboration books. All of my other speaker friends are doing collaboration books. I was like, maybe I should do a collaboration book. I put it out there. And one of my great speaker friends and like really close person to me now, her name is Angel Tussey. She specializes in getting you booked on podcasts, and she also specializes in books, which is kind of crazy. But she doesn't have a collaboration, and she encouraged me to do this. And I used her group, which was the Need a Guest Facebook group on Facebook, to fill the spots for this book. And all of a sudden, it took off like legs of its own. So we have an editor that I've worked with for many, many years. He edited my first book, Jim Martica, who's absolutely amazing. Yeah. And we've been featured on a lot of media. So it's gotten so big now that we get to be even more selective on the stories that we're bringing in. Of course, there's a fee to participate because we do all the editing, we do all the cover design, we run an Amazon bestseller campaign, we hit Amazon bestseller for all the books. We go on all these podcasts and in-person interviews on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, all this stuff.
Oh yeah, and I watched.
And then we have
I watched
a what?
Interviews. I watched one of your interviews.
So that's kind of how it started. I know I'm speaking a lot right now, which is crazy. You don't get me talking this much usually. I'm in a good mood, but that just kind of took off. So that's what we've been doing. And I also teach a group course called Legacy Camp that helps you publish your own book, speak on stages, and create courses. And then I do one-on-one coaching. So if you have a book that you want to bring from zero to published, then I will help you get that done in like 4 months or less. And right now there's a woman I'm working with. Her name is Tressa Brady. And she is writing a book called The Wounded Warrior Wives. And we are actually getting ready to start pitching to publishers and literary agents because she is writing the story of 5 women who have been murdered by their military husbands. So it's a very intense book and it's going to cause some ruckus. So we want a literary agent's help with this, but it's been absolutely amazing. And I love what I do. And it's so incredibly important to use our voices to make a difference. And when you write in the moment, it doesn't feel therapeutic. It feels daunting and scary. But after you publish that book and then you say that story from stage, I mean, Angeline, what was your experience saying your story at the book launch party?
Are you a local business owner in Stewart looking to get your brand in front of the right audience? My name is Angeline, and I am the host and founder of Let's Break the Silence, a podcast dedicated to empowering women to heal, rebuild their confidence, and step into their next chapter. I'm currently partnering with a select number of local businesses who want more visibility and deeper connection with women who are actively investing in themselves, whether that's through wellness, beauty, personal growth, or lifestyle. This isn't just about advertising. It's about building real partnerships and highlighting businesses that are truly making an impact in our community. If that sounds like you, I would love to connect. Please send me a message or reach out. Let's collaborate and grow together. I felt liberated. Yeah, it's liberate. It's like you're going on a journey to liberation. And for me, when I was up on your stage speaking, I remember feeling liberated and everything just flowed. Like whatever I said just came out naturally because I speak from the heart and from a place of authenticity. But with your book, like this is very special to me because I had to break through a lot of barriers to get to where I am now. And even escaping domestic violence, feeling ashamed to share my story because I was afraid of what other people will think. But, you know, this is stories of triumph, resilience, and transformation. I've been in other anthologies too, but this one is very special because we masterminded once a month. So for those of you who are thinking about being a published author and being, you know, just sharing your story, please get with Michelle because she will change your life and you've changed my life tremendously. And, you know, I'm looking forward to being in Greece next month for a speaker mastermind, but this other opportunity landed on my lap in Paris, you know, so opportunities will come. And for you, Michelle, I admire the fact because like I received an inheritance from my uncle and from my dad. So between the both of them, I've invested into myself. And people will think you're crazy. Why didn't you just put it? Well, because when you invest in yourself, you reap the rewards and you attract the right people in your life. But more than that, it's transformational. And the ROI will come back. And I love the fact that you lean into God, Michelle, because that's what I've done. It'll be coming up this Sunday that I got rebaptized.
Congratulations.
And when that happened, it opened up opportunities. And then we reconnected again in the summer. And I made a bold decision to be in the book.
Yeah, super cool. And it's crazy. A lot of people, and I know that this podcast isn't about this, so very brief blip. But when you find God, you think your life is going to completely shift for the better. I found God and was baptized Easter of 2010. I began my abusive relationship in January of 2012. So although I found God, I still went through this really huge adversity. And while I was going through this big adversity, he had my back. And he has always had my back. And that is the crazy part, is people think, oh, everything's going to be perfect, right? Everything is not perfect, right? Everything is not perfect when you find God. You just have somebody to walk through life with.
Exactly. And even myself, when I went through domestic violence back in 2010, it's like, yes, I walked with God, but at the same time, I was going through like a divorce. Like it was, you know, it was brutal. It was brutal because basically I lived like a gypsy for 1 year, but I knew that God was walking with me. See, he was walking with me. And a year later, I got divorced and reclaimed my life, reclaimed my power and my life back. So for the women out there, I have a question. This is a very deep question. How can women begin trusting themselves after their abuse or while, so let's say they are a believer in God and yet this happens. Like what advice would you give to women to begin trusting themselves again? Because that's a huge part, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was a journey for me. And then I heard somebody speak, and I don't remember who this was, but they were talking about them being abused and talking about God from a distance. And then they said, It wasn't God watching from afar. It was God experiencing the abuse as if he were me. That's an interesting perspective to have.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Because he is with you. He is with you in this, and he gives us free will. And unfortunately, bad things happen to great people. And these bad things are because of that free will. So then we hold the shame and all of this, and we don't know if we can trust ourselves. So I am not a life coach. I am more of a business coach. And I went through 6, 7, 8 years of therapy. And I highly encourage everybody out there to do therapy, whether it is traditional therapy or movement therapy or EDMR or all of tapping, some type of therapy. Because when you start to express yourself and get out of you what it is that happened, then you are able to heal quicker and able to start speaking your story. And when you start doing that, you realize that it's not just about you, not just about that experience that you went through, but it's about using that experiences to help others. And that's kind of what happened to me. I was like, I don't know if I can trust myself, if I can date, if I can do this. You have to put in the work for yourself. I would highly recommend like post-it notes and putting words of affirmation around your house. Writing therapy is something I always encourage, like stream of consciousness writing, where you just write out whatever's on your mind. It doesn't have to make sense, but get out of you what it is that you went through.
And you want to know something? I went to therapy, and my therapist, I wrote everything down. I wrote everything down in my diary. Yeah. I wrote everything down, and it's a release. It's an emotional release. And I love the fact that you focus on business. So how can entrepreneurs use storytelling to create deeper connection and impact?
Yeah. So everybody wants to know your hero's journey. So if you're an entrepreneur out there, if you own a business, want to own a business, if you are working even for a company and you speak or you are a face of an organization, people want to see where you've been and where you are now. So if you're an entrepreneur and you start talking about your personal journey and then talking about how you were able to overcome those adversities that then led you into your business, your career path, whatever that looks like, people will then like and trust you more. And a layer on top of that, if you decide to either support a nonprofit or start your own nonprofit organization. Now, I'm not talking about these politicians who funnel money through nonprofits. Like,
no. You started a
nonprofit organization,
right?
Or work with one that is doing great things. Then you can showcase that you have a philanthropic arm. That gains your clients trust and transparency. So that means that you are being completely transparent and vulnerable with these individuals, and they will work with you. Bill Walsh used to tell me, it's not about the money, it's about the service. So the more people you serve, the more money you will be able to make.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I love that. I love that. Speaking from the heart and also serving others and creating impact. The money will come. The money will come. I totally agree. Totally agree with Bill. Now I want to ask you just a couple more questions before we close out. What has speaking globally taught you about resilience and healing?
I truly have seen really horrible situations by traveling to third world countries. And these individuals show me that despite all the failures, the abuses that happen, they stay resilient. And they do so for themselves, for their children, for family members, for God. And it's so important to keep that resiliency. And that taught me that, I mean, I've seen the worst of worst, and like so bad that I wouldn't even want to talk about it on these podcasts. And seeing that and seeing these individuals still have a smile on their face afterwards, I don't have any excuse. We don't have any excuse not to speak up.
There you go. There you go.
So that's it.
That's it. And what legacy do you hope to leave through your work, and where can people reach you?
Legacy is very important. And when people think about legacy, they often think about future legacy when they're gone and deceased, right? Legacy for their family. But you can live your legacy now. And that's the great thing. God put us on this planet to have fun, to be in communion with one another, to have communication, to laugh, to go out and drink some wine together. If we want. We're not here to work 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 on some cases, 5, 6 days a week, be able to go to work, maybe play with our kid for an hour, watch some TV, and then drink a beer and do it all over again. That is not life. You can live that legacy now. And that's what I like to live by, is faith, family, fun.
I love it.
Those three things are super, super important. And I live by always making sure that whatever I'm doing has an aspect of one, if not all three of those. So yeah, you can leave that lasting legacy. And when I'm gone, I really pray and hope that Unsilenced Voices is then ran by another CEO who is pushing it forward and growing it so that we can impact hundreds of thousands and millions of people worldwide. Thank you so much for putting my website up. You can contact me at michellejewsbury.com. And if you're in the United States and would like a free gift, go ahead and text the word legacy to 26786. Again, it's the word legacy to 26786. That's only going to work in the US. So if not, just go to the website.
Okay, great. And then we will have everything in the show notes. So we'll have that in there as well. So thank you so much, Michelle. I could stay and talk to you for 2 hours.
Well, I've been excited to come back on. I cannot believe it's been 4 years, and
I know.
Thank you and honored for having me back.
I am honored to have you here, and thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story, your wisdom, and your heart with us. And your message is such a powerful reminder that our voices matter and that healing is possible no matter what someone has been through. And I know this conversation will inspire many women, so many women listening today, who may still be carrying pain, shame, silence, or fear. And I hope today reminds you that your story is not the end, okay? It may actually and will be the beginning of your purpose. And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning into another episode of Her Unapologetic Voice. And if this episode touched you, inspired you, please share it with another woman who needs to hear this message today. So until next time, have a beautiful day. Bye. Thank you for listening to Her Unapologetic Voice. Every conversation here is meant to help you build confidence from the inside out and find strength in your own words. If today's message resonated, follow the show and share it with a friend who's ready to lead from who she truly is. You can also connect with me on social media at Her Unapologetic Voice podcast for updates and behind the scenes insights. Remember, confidence begins when you stop apologizing for your truth and start speaking from it. I'm Angeline Constantinou, and I will see you in the next episode.